Okay, let's just see what happens, because I really hope I can do this justice today. And I have to admit actually one thing. In terms of reviewing headphones, I'm still kind of a noob, and therefore, slowly but surely, it's getting more and more of a challenge for me to properly review them, give you all the details and tell you all about the nuances, but I mostly want to share my opinion and all that, and that's why it's always kind of a rambling, since I don't make scripts. But maybe that's the fun for me, and maybe you enjoy this kind of unstructured way of doing reviews compared to my other reviews. But I have to tell you already one thing up from the start. The Audeze EL-8, closed or opened, are the two best headphones that I've ever reviewed. But just reviewed, because I was in CanJam 2017 this year in Berlin, and I've heard them all. I've heard the Stax, the Audeze LCD series, but also the EVA Flows and some other ones. And I know now that there is potential for way more in terms of sound, and something that I always ask myself, is a $1,000 or is a $2,000 headphone actually worth it? Of course, that's something only an audiophile or someone who actually thinks about buying them can kind of make his decision for its own. But I can tell you already that I changed my perspective. For me, CanJam was a revelation from what I've heard, and now I know that there is way more up top from the usual $300 or $200 headphones that I've reviewed. And if you would ask me, is something like an Audeze worth 8 times more than a $100 headphone? I would say, actually, it seems like it. Because here's one thing that I have an issue today with the reviews here. These are the Audeze EL-8 closed ones, titanium. And these are the open ones. They are also available as a closed version with the wood finish. But here's my little bit of a dilemma. In Germany, where I live, these cost about 850 euros, and these cost about 850 euros. Now the issue is in the US, everyone watching this here, prices are very, very different. These cost $800, which is not that far off, but these are just $339 on Audeze's side. Though I have to say that I couldn't find them new anymore, because they seem only to be refurbished, out of stock. I don't know since when and for how long. And when I checked Amazon, I only found them for about $400 refurbished. So they don't seem to make any new ones anymore, at least not sell them in the US. So I'm not quite sure where I should actually judge them in terms of price. Should I judge them like these at 800 or like these at 400, which is still in Germany at 800. So I would say personally, if I wouldn't know better, if I would have to judge them on an $800 basis, already right now I can tell you, I think they are actually worth it. Absolutely. But for 330 or 400, they are actually kind of a steal. But before I'm going into all of that and why I think that way, let's check what's in the box. On the titanium, what we get is this kind of mobile cable. They're all flat, by the way. This also has a remote, as you can see here, with 3 buttons. And this one is the lightning version. So on the titanium, you get the lightning version that works with Apple devices. The cable, the whole one is 1.25 meters. And as you can see here, we have proprietary connectors for the headphones, and you can't really do anything wrong, because as you can see here, this is the right one, so you have to take the R, and the R always has to look in the inside, and it doesn't work any other way. It clicks, it doesn't work any other way around, and then you just put them on. They are replaceable, of course, but you have to get the original one, so just keep that in mind. Quality of the cables, absolutely fine. Personally, the 125 for mobile use should be no problem at all. So let's put that aside. And there is also a longer cable here available. Of course, with a headphone jack at the end and the adapter. This one is though only just 1.80 meters. And usually for hi-fi headphones, I'm kind of used to like 3 meters. So I would wish for this to be actually longer. Quality is fine. I'm personally not that much of a fan of flat cables in home use, but quality seems fine. So no complaints with that. So this is this. Now for the open one, there is a little bit of a difference, because it doesn't have the lightning jack. This one just comes with a regular short cable with a headphone jack and the remote, of course. So no lightning jack. But also the other cable is the same one. So that we have already covered. Now let's get into the next thing, which would be the headphones themselves. They are very, very similar. As you can see, the whole base is pretty much the same. It's just a little bit of a finishing touch on the titanium that is different. And I have to say personally, this one doesn't just feel amazingly premium and so on, but it also looks very nice and stylish. So I definitely prefer this one over this, but that's just me. The construction definitely is very solid. As you can see here, you can flex them very nice Great metal structure also. This is actually a super nice idea because only this part is flexible and that's the only part that touches your head, and this is totally enough. It's super soft, but it's also kind of like spring-loaded, so this is an amazing idea. The rest here, as you can see, we have of course the R and L. They are rotating, as you can see here, in both directions, which is actually quite something that I don't see often. And yeah, top build quality here with the metal here, with this a little bit like kind of grainy finish, which I'm not so sure what material this actually is. But now let's get into the ear cups. Kind of a highlight for me because, as you can see, very, very thick at one end and a little bit thinner on the other end, as you can see. But this shape is so amazing, but it's also the cutout. First of all, it's big enough so the whole hole here fits in absolutely. It's also thick enough, I would say, but for some reason, but that's an issue of many people, maybe, that my ear still touches a little bit, but since they are so soft and thick, it doesn't really bother me at all. It's totally worth the compromise because of the otherwise amazing quality, because this is so soft. It's not memory foam, but it feels amazing, and this is pretty much the same on both here. I don't see any difference. So thick, big, just amazing. The wood finish, I have to say though, doesn't actually feel like wood to me. Everyone says it is, but for me, I thought this would be kind of like something like a sticker. But it is genuine wood from what I get. Personally, I have to say this doesn't feel premium because it's very dry wood. And it's weird. So this definitely takes the cake. As you can see also, it does rotate in this way. So it's very flexible, customizable. One thing though, that it is also, it's heavy. It's very heavy. But I'll tell you why that is not actually an issue for me if we have covered it all, because as you can see here, the inside slightly covered up, so I guess this is fine. So let's talk about the comfort and put these monsters on, because what you will pretty much never forget is that you have them on, just because of the weight. But I also have to say that of all the headphones that I have, these are the most comfortable ones, just because everything here seems right. As you can see here, only this part touches, and it's actually a very, for such a big headphone, as you can see here, this is actually very subtle, because it's not as wide as many, and here very decent. There is not a lot of space going on here, which is super nice, and we have thick pads, and due to the shape, they sit just in the right angle to your ear. Ah, so good, so soft. And for some people, always on many headphones, you bother about the clamping force. Not an issue here at all, because the clamping force is just right. So they sit, they don't really move at all. They sit just the way they should. Of course, they wobble due to the big, massive ear pads. There is just a little bit wiggle room, but it's so comfortable. Like I said, just the weight, but besides from that, what I can't really do so much so well on them is if I want to maybe lean back in my TV chair and just relax and listen to music, because then the weight just kind of pushes them towards the back. They won't really fall off, but that's not maybe the most comfortable thing. But if you sit halfway, and I mean really just halfway decently straight, these are so amazing. Because they sit and you don't really feel like they touch at all anywhere. Like I said, sometimes it feels, but that's like on 95% of all headphones the issue for me. I know that some people have it, some don't at all. But even on these, I would not bother at all. And the comfort on both, I would say, is actually the same. I wouldn't really see a bigger difference here. And I think I've covered it in terms of fit. Yeah, right. They don't sit super tight or something. Very loose, elegant, very comfortable for a longer period of time, and they are so good. Now let's get into the sound, and here I want to start off with the sounds, not the sound stage, I mean the isolation and so on, because the closed ones, since they are closed, they definitely isolate very well, because you have a lot of padding going around, and you hear yourself definitely very muffled, and it actually has some good passive noise isolation, because usually if there is some little hum or noise in my studio, which is usually very quiet, I pretty much don't hear anything. This is super nice, and since they are closed, they don't leak too much, but yeah, they leak, especially if you listen loud. Now, the open ones are different, because if I put them on, I actually pretty much hear myself the same way. The only thing that I've noticed is that I hear myself with a little bit more of a nasally voice. That's the only difference. But other than that, if I have them on or not, I think that I sound just weirder when I have them on. Like something filters in it. I have my nose closed. It sounds like this. But that's just a minor difference. But other than that, of course, they leak way more. Now, let's talk about soundstage. What I have on the And I actually will definitely more go towards covering the closed ones compared to the open ones, just because for one reason, and I'm gonna say this already straight up front. People always say you shouldn't really compare open with closed and so on, but since you have already the same model, I think you kind of need to compare them, and not just because open and closed is such a different soundstage and so on. I actually think they sound very alike, but for me the reason is why I'm gonna cover the closed one more, the titanium, is just because everything the open one does amazingly well. This just does it at least one level better for some reason. It's just more smooth around the package, but let's get into that. Now, about the soundstage, as I said, one thing that I like so much about it is that it has a very unique soundstage, at least from all the headphones that I've heard, because it is like following. It starts, because usually you have a 0 point in the middle and then it just goes depending on how wide headphones are. But these are not here. These kind of start like here and then go to a certain level that you won't see me doing anymore. And you are within this range, which is a little bit something odd, but something really, really awesome. I would not really say these are either one suitable for gaming in case you want to do some high-end gaming, because I could not really locate anything, because it was a very odd. I could not kind of figure out distances and directions, yes, but distances were very odd. So for gaming, not, in case you want to use it. These are for music and everything else, but just to cover that. But the soundstage, it is very unique, because I'm not quite sure. I can't say if it's a small one or a huge one, because it's something in between. It's definitely not super big. Even the closed ones, they are a little bit better also for games, but it's not a whole lot of difference. But the soundstage is really nice, because it's also quite open and definitely more wider one. It feels very airy, and that is so good. Now, I don't really know how else to explain soundstage, because imaging and so on is maybe not that great, like I said, for gaming, but the soundstage is top. And like I said, this is a little bit weird to explain, but I've never experienced this before, and also not on Kangen when I tried some other headphones, but it's definitely something. Now, about the sound, I have to say both are actually very, very neutral, which I did not expect at all at first, because the first moment when I put them on, I actually thought they are broken, because the very first moment it felt like they have no bass at all. This though has also one thing to do with the ear cups, especially on the closed ones. I noticed one thing: if I just put them on, sound is a little bit off. I have to kind of, just for one moment, push them both in, maybe to kind of tighten this or kind of seal them properly, and then there is the bass, and then everything else is there. Not that there's a lot of bass, because like I said, they're very neutral, and that's kind of the best part, because they are neutral, or let's say kind of neutral, quite neutral, in such an amazing way. Because the bass here, let's talk about the bass first. The best thing about it is how kind of deep down low it extends, because it can play some very low end bass that I usually don't hear on many headphones. But other than that, it's a very detailed bass, it's a very clear and open bass, it's a precise bass, it's not a super tight bass. There are tighter ones, but it's a very pleasant bass. And in terms of amount of bass, what I would say is maybe, just maybe, if you want to use the equalizer, you could add a nudge at the very bottom, just to maybe enhance the feeling. That is what I did, for example, on Fubar. I just added, and I don't need that, but if you want to, just add a little bit, just like one step of bass, and then it sounds even a little bit nicer, because not that it's too little, because on everything else, I so much enjoyed the bass, because it's always there, it's always subtle, it's just there in the amount of that you need, like similar to the Yamaha MT5 that I said, if you need a lot of or a good amount of bass, it's there. On tracks that don't need it, it's not there, and it's always doing it right. That is so great. Mids also super clarity, super nice and detailed. So smooth. This is what I like. Especially vocals. They are not maybe quite as upfront like on the Yamaha MT5, but they are closer to what I usually like. So a little bit more on front. So not at the line with the instruments, but just a little bit. And they do kind of get the singers a little bit standing out. Not as extreme as on the MT5, but definitely way better than some other ones, because I'm someone who prefers vocals on music. I still want to listen to the music and I want to get it, but just a little bit of a nudge. I want the vocals up front, and this is what I get here. So super nice. The highs also never harsh, but also just exactly to that point before it gets harsh, so you don't lose any details. It never feels like it would be kind of missing something. It's a very, though, kind of on a super high-end level smoothened off high and maybe highs, because that's maybe why they sound so relaxing for a longer period of time, because I can listen to all kinds of music very, very loud and it never really gets on my nerves. It is always very pleasant, but also never really missing any details, and this is so good. The overall balance is super nice. It's not perfectly flat, it's not perfectly neutral, because then I think already it would be boring, and these are not. So I definitely like that a lot. Now let's talk a little bit about the ones that I didn't really talk a lot about, are the open ones, because I would have to say that the main difference is actually just that they have a little bit, maybe not more bass, or let's say maybe a little bit more bass, but it's not making the difference, because this one, the closed one, it extends maybe a little bit further, but this one has a little bit more at the higher bass frequency. But it's a marginal differences. The mids are almost exactly the same, and the only thing why I think these are just inferior to the closed ones, which is pretty much the only bigger difference, is the highs, because they sounded a little bit clogged up, just a little bit, maybe a little bit too silky. So silky smooth, and I like more like a little bit more pregnant, harsh highs, just because it feels nicer to me, to my ears. I want that hardness. If you want maybe something that is a little bit smooth and even better for long time listening, then maybe these, because otherwise they're very similar. But I just personally, I'm not gonna say that the open ones are unnecessary, because they aren't, but in kind of some way they are, because like I said, they are otherwise sounded very, very extremely similar, like maybe 95%. The only difference, like I said, the little bit more bass and the little bit softer highs in case you want that. But the general thing is the better, but the overall balance, I would say, on the closed one is just better. Everything feels just rounder, smoother, just more right. You have a little bit more clarity in the sound and so on. Soundstage may be marginally better on the open ones, but not enough to make the difference. So I would say, in case you have both at the same price, I don't see anyone picking up the open ones if the closed ones are already so good. Now, how are they to power? Personally, I have to say, actually not very hard, because, okay, with the lightning jack cable, using it with an iPad because I don't have an iPhone, I have to say this is not loud enough for me. Like maybe 80% of that, because I listen very loud. I've noticed that on IFA already, that I listen obscenely loud. That's just the way I like it. And on an iPad, I wouldn't be able, but of course you have amps and so on. But with something, with, like I said, just my audio interface, not really enjoyable. But with, for example, the shit Magni 2 that I have, easily without any issues. Then I can get plenty loud enough without any issues. It can drive it super efficient, so I wouldn't be concerned about it. And I know there are way more expensive headphone amps, which I will maybe get in the future, but for right now I don't see anything that it can't power, and these one absolutely easily. And yeah. So I would say after about 18 minutes, let's summarize this, and then let me tell you a little bit of if I can recommend them or not. So in terms of packaging, there's all fine. I gotta say the boxing actually wasn't all that impressive, because it felt a little bit cheap, and it actually felt like these ones were actually opened already for some reason, even though they shouldn't have been. And it's not a spectacular packaging, but you get the most necessary cables and so on. Yeah. Comfort. Yes. Oh man, like I said, heavy, but so damn comfortable. And the issue was always when I got upstairs here, I said I will just listen for 1 hour on both and check them a little bit, and not one session ended under 4 hours, because once you have them on, you just don't want to put them down anymore. This is just so great, and you can actually hear sometimes a little bit of crackling going on, but yeah, that's maybe the structure. So yeah, sound wise, now the thing is, just if it comes down to 800 and 400, I can already tell you that I thought before I knew the whole $400 part, yes, they are actually worth 800, and I thought about it, and I thought, okay, is the sound 8 times better than a $100 one, a really good $100 headphone? No, it's not. But of course, with diminishing returns here at this thing, it will just happen that you pay like sometimes $400-500, or let's say not just dollars, but 4 or 5 times more than anything cheaper, to just maybe get 10% more. But these 10% could be just it, or maybe it's the comfort, because I think what makes a big part of why I think it's worth it is the just superior build quality because they feel so super premium, luxurious, and also comfortable, because if I usually take a $200 or $300 headphone, they usually aren't as comfortable. Maybe they sit right, maybe the fit is actually better. But this overall feeling, this is, when I have these on, it feels like I have something on that is worth way more than anything else that I have. Maybe that's actually the weight, because the heavier something is, the kind of more premium it feels. At least that's the way I see it. And these do a very good job. So, like I said, for around 400, if you can get them and so on, absolutely a yes for me. But even for 800, if you like the sound and so on, if you try them, if you like the overall thing, yes, yes, yes. Okay, you might say, for example, for about $300 I can get the Monoprice, the Monolith M1060, which offer way better value because they're planar and so on. Might be that they sound a lot better, because I cannot tell you this because I actually just ordered them because I want to know how good they are, especially once I heard that they seem to be better than the Audeze LCD2, and I've heard those on CanJam, and these were kind of the first super high-end, or let's say higher end ones that I've got to try on CanJam, and I was kind of amazed by their comfort and their amazing sound quality, and I hope to get to review these as well. And if I think about, because I was actually able to spend $1,200 at that point for headphones, I thought, yes, $1,200, these are worth that. Yes, a lot more than I ever wanted to pay for, but worth it. And then I heard I can get a better, maybe even sound for a quarter of that. Yes, sign me up. But getting back to these, I said all I wanted to say. If you have any further questions, or if you want to maybe tell me a few suggestions of what I should do different in terms of covering headphones, because like I said, because it sounds very similar to what I say on the $200 phones, and the only way to headphones, and the only other way to express a headphone that is multiple times, at least say, more expensive, but also better, is, I guess, my expressions, my mimics and so on, because it is hard to put it down into words. That's why I love what Z Reviews is doing. He maybe doesn't give you a whole lot of details, but the story he tells around, he's kind of like the headphone whisperer, because what he does is absolutely amazing. I love his reviews. And also I have to say, one thing that I'm very happy with is that so far all the headphones that I could try that he reviewed, we seem to have a very similar taste, because I every time so far thought exactly the same. So I guess that's a good sign for me. Now I don't want to copy him or anything, because he does his, unique style, and he does it so good. I wish maybe to at some point get anywhere close to that status, which will, I guess, never happen. But believe me, the more and more higher end headphones I'm trying, and with these starting, the more and more, even more, if that's possible, I enjoy making these reviews. It's just so much fun. That's why I know, or I kind of get why he loves just doing that. If I would have the possibilities, which I don't have yet, I would totally do the same. Okay, let's just wrap it up. Until next time, bye.